Well, let's proceed. I think we'd like to invite the second speaker, Mr. Antonio, to present his. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quite interesting to be here and to hear what we went through, the beginnings of trying to figure out exactly how to do this in many ways, and hopefully you'll benefit from what we went through. One of the key things that you need to think in terms of the United Kingdom and our experience is this. We started with open data because we wanted to be accountable. It was a matter of accountability. Government wanted to be more accountable to the taxpayer, hence it needed to be more open. Open data is the currency of transparency. You cannot be transparent without providing something in an open way, in a format that is not bound by any specific software, etc., etc. I cannot force you to use something in order for me to be transparent. So hence, open data became the landmark case for the UK and its attempt to embrace, in a wider way, open government. Now, to talk about our experience, first probably it will be better to talk about what it has done for us. So, for example, in the United Kingdom, you can find online the salary of every single public servant. And for senior public servants, you can find their name as well. You can find a list of all of the senior civil servants who make more than the Prime Minister. Not that many, but still, you can find it there. You can find every single contract let by the government, and you can also find the cost. You can find reports on how it's doing. And you can find also reports in where the money came from, which cost center and who's responsible for that. These were the first waves of transparency in the United Kingdom, supported by Data.gov UK, an open data portal, like many other countries are attempting to establish, an open data portal where people can go and download the data in an open format so they can do things, and armchair auditors will come and take it to task. That didn't necessarily work out as well as we thought, to be honest with you. The element of the public taking responsibility is something that we have come to realize is very important. So we as government take a position to say, here's our data, use it, have it, tell us what's wrong with it so we can fix it. Let's make something more out of it. And the taxpayer, the citizen, has to somehow take that, embrace it, and take us to task. It's a two-way road, and we're working on that second aspect. So, for example, we have over 365 services and applications using open data in the UK. We have over 500 companies using open data, where more than 20%, 20 to 45% of their budgets are based on the use of open data that we provide. We have, for example, savings on services sort of like the NHS with the 200 million a year, and several local authorities are finding out that there are other ways of saving. Good examples is, for example, getting crowdsourced data. So we publish data where, for example, snow plows, I don't think snow will be a very common thing around here, but snow plows in the UK, they go to different roads where they think the traffic is most. Some local authorities have published that data openly, and citizens actually take it, put it on a map, and then they can actually say, this is where we need it. So local authorities began to compare where they were sending them to where people were saying there was needed, and beginning to shift where the snow plows went to actually go to the roads that were needed, because the citizen was telling us this is where the problem is. So even small changes in how we provide services have been linked to the fact that if you publish it openly, people will do things with it and then come back to you with either suggestions or demands in terms of the service not being focused where it needs to be focused. And that has helped us at the local level begin to realize that as austerity is a common theme across Europe and some parts of the world, as we need to find to do more with less, opening up data is allowing us to get participation from the citizens who are quite concerned about their daily lives, companies who actually want to use this data to come up with better services both for us, government, and the citizen. And open data becomes a very nice environment in which that conversation can take place. Interestingly, for example, procurement is a big area. I think every single country sees it as a big area. One of the things we have done is embrace the open contracting standards from the World Bank. And one of the things we are also doing is putting transparency as a condition of contracting. So when the government contracts something, the condition is that A, the data comes back to us, and it comes back to us in an open standard. We retain the rights to the data for every single contract the government lets, plus certain conditions on transparency to the company that is doing that. So you will have to say what you're doing, you will have to declare what's happening. So that is sort of like the basic of the building blocks that put us to the road of open data and transparency. Then we began to create the drivers. One of them was the Open Data Institute, which I think is quite active also in Malaysia. And the idea was to create entities that could help foster the use of open data and the need of open data. There are a tremendous amount of startups in the UK, all of them using the data services. So the portal, for example, is beginning to get more complex technical services so people can use the data. We also have companies helping us with quality of data. I think quality of data was mentioned by the minister, a tremendous problem and something we're trying to address because we really don't know what we have. It's amazing. Government makes a lot of decisions and sometimes you wonder based on what data, because when you ask our colleagues, you know, across government, so what do you use to do that? Can I have that data? They said, what data? Or if they find it and give it to you in a state where you say, there's no way that you could have made a decision based on this data, just no way. So it has also created a change inside government. So we are now working internally to create a data sharing infrastructure. So government departments can share data amongst each other, and we have certain legal limitations to that, but we're working with it. And also data science, so we can train civil servants into the fact that they need to use data to evidence the policy changes they're making, which is a tremendous change in government, okay? So we are the worst users of open data in government, and we're trying to change that so we become the primary users of open data. That's going to take time. But as you do that, you begin to change. And open data at the very end is a behavioral change project for society and for governments, all right? It is not something you can impose, it's something you embrace and something you learn from. And that has been the biggest experience we have had in the UK, is that it is the embracing of the principles and the doing that get us there, not the enforcing it as such, although you sometimes had to enforce it, but the power came out of when people realized, hang on a minute, if I give you this data, you're going to do that? But that's going to save me money. Great. And they stay with it. So within that framework of opening up contracts, the framework of being accountable in terms of procurement, the framework of being accountable in terms of the civil service and how people behave, say the accountability on the parliamentary expenditures, for example, for MPs, members of parliament. When you combine all that, when you bring it all together, what has been our experience is that A, start it, do it, don't ask questions, don't think too much about it. It is the right thing to do, just do it. Prepare to be disappointed, because you need to try it several times. As they say in development, agile, fail often and fail fast. So don't be afraid of trying it. We have to learn that the hard way sometimes. Do it and learn from whatever fails and then keep doing it again. That's what got us to where we are. It was not a philosophical analysis of how marvelous this might be, or a great aspiration of, you know, of change as much of a need to change, an immediate need to change, which we embraced. And as much as we had latitude within our cultural structure, we went the extra mile always, because it was better to walk backwards than to get short of the goal. So overarchingly, United Kingdom is where it's at because A, we believed in it, but B, because we changed with it. So, and those are the two main things I tell anywhere I go is A, you have to believe that it is a good thing to do. You have to embrace it for what it is. But B, you have to change with it. It is not something you put in place and say, we're going to look like that. Because it's going to change so much on the way. So you change with it. And that flexibility is probably the greatest benefit that the UK has derived from this, from this agenda. And lastly, one of the biggest things that we have gotten as a benefit is to see an emerging market of startups, an emerging market of companies and services, not only saying, I can do it cheaper for you, local authority, I can do it cheaper for you, government, I can help you reduce cost, but also seeing this thriving new set of opportunities, new careers, data analysts, I mean, things that most of us wouldn't have dreamed was a career, even, are emerging as viable ways. And this richness is creating what we call the Silicon Roundabout, you know, our technical space in the UK. And it's creating this marvelous set of energies, this conversation between government and citizens for prosperity. This sense that, yes, we can get there. And it has been driven by open data. It has been driven by that openness, the sincerity of saying, look, let's try this. I'll give you the stuff, you do something with it, and we have a conversation, and I'll try to make it better. And that sincerity has done amazing things for us, and it will continue to do so. Thank you.